Good morning, Warzone kids. I'm on the road a little bit earlier than usual this morning, so you get this German abstract expressionistic lighting, a lot of shadows and light. That's fine. I'm a shadows and light kind of guy. I said Warzone kids. That's my term for those of us like myself. I'm a child sex abuse survivor. As an adult, I live with borderline personality disorder. I'm a recovering addict and bulimic. Warzone kids is my term for those of us whose childhoods were more like a hostile war zone against our psyche, our souls, who we are, and less like a supportive hothouse nursery where we could grow a delicate orchid. And if you're a Warzone kid, whether the harm caused you was sexual harm, emotional harm, psychological harm, those are a big part of my story. Physical harm, which wasn't, maybe gender or racial or societal harm. Whatever it was, by the time you're an adult as a Warzone kid, your psyche, your soul, who you are, has a lot in common with a Jenga tower toward the end of the game. Jenga's that game that you play with a wooden block made up a lot of smaller blocks, and every little bit of harm, abuse, and neglect that you suffered is like the turns in the Jenga game where you slide out one of those blocks and you put it on top. And with each turn, the Jenga tower gets a little taller and a little less stable and a little more rickety. And by the end of the game, everyone is just spending all their time and effort trying to keep that Jenga tower from falling down. Don't look at it, don't stomp near the table, don't touch it, don't even breathe on it. Well, life as a Warzone kid can be like that. You can find yourself in a sea of suffering where you're just trying to hold it together. And a lot of us, myself very much included, have found that when that Jenga tower falls down, that's the end of that Jenga tower in that tall, rickety shape, but that's the beginning of my chance to put my Jenga tower back solid. It's easier after it falls down. You can just look down, pick up the pieces, and put them back. So this is part two of what does it mean to be an expert in healing? I was thinking about that. However we got here, whatever timeline it is, however you think about that, we are human creatures. That's how I think of us, somehow or another. And you may see us as different than other creatures, but we're not plants, we're not fungi, we're not protozoa, we're some type of animal creature when you look at us in that way. And we do certain things. We like to pair off and get married to rear children, to procreate. We don't live like bees where there's 10,000 drones and one queen that gets impregnated and lays eggs. We don't live like that. We don't live in a bunch of ways. We live like we live. There's some slight variations. You got polygamy in some places where there's one man that has multiple wives. You got polyandry in other places where there's one woman with multiple husbands. People do it, and there's some variation. Overwhelmingly, more than anything else, we do it more like your swans do it, more like dogs, less like cats. We tend to pair off and form a family bond, right? This is just somehow in the nature of our existence as human creatures. We have initiation ceremonies for young boys and young girls as they turn into young men and young women. We have marriage ceremonies. We like, as human beings, to get together and do something to celebrate and honor the fact that people decided to pair off. Now, how we do these things differs culture to culture, all over the place. That we do them is pretty consistent. We do something. We grieve when we lose someone. How we do it's different. Sometimes we put them in the ground so they can return to earth that way. Sometimes we cremate folks so they return to the cosmos that way. Sometimes we take the body of a deceased person and put it up on a platform in the air so birds and beasts can come and return to the cosmos that way. And we cry or we don't cry. And we do something to honor the loss that we experienced. Right? These are things we do. These are in our nature. Why are they in our nature? They're in our nature. I don't know how they got there, why they got there, but they're in our nature as human beings. Don't get hung up on what I mean by nature. It just means how we do things. Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, was an extremely unneurotic man, and he said, by nature, I mean that which happens always or for the most part. Next. He didn't really get into it beyond that. We have something in our nature like that. That's what I mean. Healing circles. What does it mean to be an expert in healing? One of the things we have some nature about is that we can have parts of our lives that alter us. I'm a 51-year-old Gen Xer. I grew up in Oklahoma. I've lived in Vermont for 20 years. But I grew up in Oklahoma. And Oklahoma is a word which means land of the red man. I believe that might be a Cherokee word, although I'm not sure. But the Comanche are one of the indigenous peoples that lived in the place now known as Oklahoma, where I'm from. Before, my direct ancestors, who were Confederate refugees from places like Tennessee and Alabama after the war, they left the desolated South and they moved west into Texas, and then they moved north up into Oklahoma. That's where my people come from. And these are just facts. I can't do nothing about any of it. And except acknowledge the fact and be aware of it and how I relate to my fellow human creatures right here and now. But the Comanche were well known as a fearsome people, and they were well known for doing raids and whatnot, things like that, and they did a lot of fighting with their fellow Plains Indians, as they were called when I was a child. Native Americans, indigenous peoples. Comanche were well known for using a very specific style of face painting when they went to war. White with red and green on it is mostly what I've seen. Fearsome in the dark, to have a bunch of men with white faces, look like skulls. I would not like to be awakened in my sleep with a Comanche fella over me with a blunt object or a sharp object with his face painted white like that. That would be fearsome. I would not like it. Now, they put that face paint on when they went to war. And then when they went back home, they took that face paint off. Now, they put on that face paint for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons that they put that face paint on was to be fearsome. I would tell you, as a human being who's looked into mythology a little bit, I studied the ancient Greek world in college, and I love me some mythology. One of the elements of why they put that face paint on is to mark a separation between their lives at home when they did whatever it was they did on a daily basis and their lives engaged in violence, engaged in warfare. And then one of the reasons you take that off, you put that on and you become that guy and you go do that thing. And then you take it off and you go back home and you go from being that guy doing that thing to being this guy doing this thing. You got to play with your kids. Now, I believe it is now let me say something else. Warfare and fighting seems to be elemental in human nature, whether you like it or not. It would be very hard to mount an argument that fighting, conflict, and warfare is not an elemental aspect of our nature as human creatures. Now, as is the transformation, whether it's putting on armor, putting on face paint, from being this guy doing this thing at home to being that guy doing that thing at war. Now, as it's come to me, I've not done any anthropological research on this for reasons that these videos should make clear. Healing circles. I'm a volunteer circle keeper with an organization called Hidden Water. We facilitate healing circles by and for those affected by child sex abuse. We got green circles for those like myself who are child sex abuse survivors. There are blue circles and orange circles for those who are either non-offending parents of child sex abuse survivors or loved ones in the present moment of child sex abuse survivors. And there are purple circles. There are circles for those who've caused harm to children and are ready to make amends and take responsibility. And as a circle keeper, I show up, I start the Zoom meeting, and I pass on, I do my very best to pass on what I've learned to others as the wisdom, as the human wisdom of these healing circles has been passed on to me, and it has altered my life radically. And I do my very best to do my part in trying to create a possibility that I might be able to pass on that knowledge to the next generation. Next generation comes along twice a year. We've got 2 healing circle rounds a year. Now, to the best of my understanding, the whole concept, the whole idea of healing circles, as we practice them, and it is a practice, it is something we do, not something we learn about or read about or do research on. It is something we do. That practice has come to us from indigenous peoples in North America. And it is a human practice that has emerged from the need of human beings to help each other heal from psychic wounds. We have practices and skills and experience at healing from physical wounds at whatever level of culture and scientific technology is available. We have practices around that. We have practices around healing from psychological wounds, from wounds to my heart, from wounds to my soul. The word soul, again, Aristotle would just tell you the word soul is the animating principle, what makes me alive. Leave it at that. Healing circles are an element of the human practice of us helping each other heal from psychic wounds. The way to the depths is through the surface. Look at the practice. It is a healing circle of me and my fellow human creatures. The wisdom that has come to us from our fellow human creatures that have come before us is that healing from psychic wounds is something best done together with others who can relate to our psychic wounds. In the healing circles I'm privileged to be part of, I see myself reflected back in the other 7 faces on the Zoom screen. And it is my belief that the other 7 circlers see parts of themselves in me to some extent or other. Now, it is absolutely elemental in the nature of child sex abuse that it is an alienating experience. Ask around. It is alienating. You are separated from yourself. You are separated from the house you grew up in. You can be separated from the society around you. You can be separated from the cosmos itself. You can live in a state of aloneness with yourself and a sense of isolation that would be extremely difficult to describe and utterly unnecessary, because anyone that sat in a green circle with me knows what I'm talking about, I would say, I would guess. And part of what makes the healing circle healing is the simple fact that I know that that I am not alone in that isolation, in that alienation from myself. And for the very first time in my life, in the very first healing circle I sat in, I had the experience of knowing that the 7 people around me in that circle were my fellow human creatures, and they could relate, whether they were men or women, whether they were the same race, creed, or color as I was, whether they were in my age bracket, whether they were older, younger, whether they were man or woman or non-binary or transgendered, whether we shared any other beliefs at all under the sun. We shared the experience of being child sex abuse survivors, and we shared the experience of that alienation. And every time I've heard any one of us, we get together, we share our stories. I share my story to be understood, and they listen to me to understand me. And when they share their stories, in order for me to understand them, I listen so that I can understand their experience. And without fail, I have seen and heard parts of my own story coming out of the mouths of my fellow circle people, my fellow circlers. And I believe that most of them have heard and seen some of themselves in me. Now, that's an experience, Pilgrim. It is an experience. And you may never in your life have a chance to have that experience. There's a link to Hidden Water Circle if you're a child sex abuse survivor, family or loved one, non-offending parent, or if you've caused harm to a child and you're ready to make amends and engage in that in the healing process. Get yourself on the waiting list, please. If that never happens for you, look at me and please know that if we were together and you told me your story, I would see part of myself in you. I would feel part of myself in you. And I can just about guarantee you that if you heard my experience, you would probably see some of yourself in me. And whether we ever meet face to face, whether that ever happens to you, please feel that. Now, the way to the depths is through the surface. Just look at what you're doing. The practice is getting together. It is part of the nature of this wisdom that has come down from people who lived before me, like the Circle Keeper, who advised me. I don't know exactly where and when the healing happens, Ben. All I can say is I recommend that you show up. And that is all she could say. And that is all I did. I showed up and I didn't want to. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to stay there. I didn't like it. But I stayed there. And my life was different by the end of it. We grieve. We have initiation ceremonies. We fall in love. We give birth to children. When we're hurt, we go to a medicine woman or a medicine man. When our souls are hurt, we go to a healing circle. Those men, those Comanche warriors, those Comanche fathers, those Comanche husbands, brothers, and sons that went off, that put on that white face paint and became that guy and went off and did that thing. When they came back home and took off that paint and became this guy doing this thing, I do not know this. I venture to guess that they did some form of healing circle, whether they would call it that or not. They may have just sat around and been quiet. They may have told each other stories. They may have cried with each other. They may have honored each other's acts of bravery. But I'll bet you my bottom dollar that they got together and they hung out because they experienced psychic wounds. So whenever I hear someone, the idea, where's the evidence? Where's the people with letters after their names? Where's the science? I understand that. There's a lot of snake oil in the world. There's a lot of hogwash in the world. There's a lot of lies in the world. There's a lot of stories in the world. And there's a lot we've learned about the cosmos and about being human beings through scientific inquiry. That don't have anything to do with the fact that as human creatures, we need healing. And we can learn from those that came before us. They can hand it down. It is important that we honor the time when a young boy becomes a young man, and when a young girl becomes a young woman, and when children are born, and when people fall in love. We honor these things. This is a fact of the cosmos. When we're hurt, we need healing. All the scientific research in the world cannot alter those facts, and the facts that these are elements in human nature. There's a little bit of a ruckus on the road in front of me because there's one of these deals in Vermont which you one side of the street has to stop, and the other, while the other people go down to pass some construction or something. And there was some antisocial behavior. The folks on the other coming at me did not want to stop. They wanted to keep on going. A little bit of reality here on the trail to the Western Lands. So that's what's in my mind. That's what's in my mind. The facts are the facts. Our experience as human beings is our experience. And we can let ourselves learn from those who have come before. And if a psychologist comes along and does some research and finds out ways to optimize healing circles and so on, that's great. I'll listen to it. But I will give much more weight to the wisdom of the woman who told me, Ben, won't you just show up and try? She cared about me because she saw part of herself. She saw part of herself in the man she was talking to on the phone that day. She saw a suffering fellow human creature, and she offered me a hand. She offered me an invitation to come to the place where, however it works, whyever it works, she knew that it had worked. I will be forever grateful to her and to everyone else I've sat in a circle with. I'll be forever grateful. This is Exhibit A. This 23 minutes is this pilgrim's Exhibit A, as evidence, which I submit as scientific evidence that healing circles work. Now you get exhibits B through double Z. I can't even say that with a straight face. B through double Z bits of evidence, and you do whatever you want to with it. And I invite you to get on the waiting list. I offer an invitation to get on the waiting list for Healing Circle in Hidden Water while you wait for all the other evidence to come in. Go ahead and get on the trail to the Western Lands. See if you don't find something there, whether you got evidence or not. Whether you see people with the right letters after their name or not. See if you don't find something. Just show up. And if you can't do that, know that I feel a connection with you anyway if you're watching this 25 minutes in. You're watching it for a reason, and I love you. And I offer you a helping hand, and I will let you know that I can see some of myself in you right now. Because I'm the kind of guy that would have watched 25 minutes of this. And I bet you can see some of yourself in me. It's a beautiful day on the Trail to the Western Lands. The sky is kind of a very soft, velvety violet, because rosy-fingered Dawn is awake, and she's not under her blankets. She's under a very thin blue sheet, and it's given the sky a lovely violet, velvety look this morning. And I'm going to get in a lot of miles on the Trail to the Western Lands today, Pilgrim. The day lies burning. I'm going to get after it. Let's go.